right. After doing some research, I figured out a bit more about how the Holdem Manager 3 archiving process works. When I originally told you about the setup for the software, I specifically stated that you needed to turn off the archive feature because it would cause conflict with the hand histories being pulled into Holdem Manager 3. When I was talking about it, I specifically said that you needed to, you needed to open up under Tools into Settings. You needed to open up the Settings folder. There we go. You needed to open up the Settings folder. And on the settings folder, you wanted to go, or needed to open up the settings. And in the settings, you needed to specifically uncheck Move Imported Files into an archive directory. Now you can see that I have it checked here, and that's the reason why this is because I figured out exactly what was going on. The issue that I was having was when I was manipulating the Holdem Manager database, or the Holdem Manager software, what was happening was files were being pulled into the archive before I felt that they were ready to be pulled in there. So now, this is the reason why. Anytime the Holdem Manager software is A, caused to activate an import process, B, caused to shut down the import process, or C, to shut down in general, it will automatically archive regardless of the time. So, for example, as you can see right now, in my hand history folder, it's blank. And you can see up here in the archive folder, it's blank. There's nothing there. If I move a hand into my hand history, you can see that there's a hand there, but there's nothing in the archive folder. It's empty. Now, if I start the heads-up display and let it process, you can see that immediately what it did was pull the file into the archive. As this gets updated, this archive gets information added to it. Now, when I stop the archive, you can see that the file left my hand history and immediately went up into the archive. And it shows here that it's partial. In the first one, if we open it, let me show you what it says here. Hold on a second. Here you go. You can see the hand history to a point, and then it like sort of cuts off. If I open up the other hand history, you can see that the information isn't complete. That's what it was doing. It was pulling information from one file to another, or excuse me, from one folder to another. Because I was starting the heads-up display, I was stopping the heads-up display, and I was attempting to import other files. That's what was going on. That's the reason why it was archiving prematurely, because I was effectively manipulating the software in a manner that caused it to trigger. So that's the reason why that was happening. So you don't have to turn it off, as long as you understand that anything that is in your hand history at the point of activation of the heads-up display will be automatically removed from your hand history folder and put into the archive. And when you're done and you turn off the heads-up display, or you're done and you turn off the software, anything that's in your hand history folder will be moved into the archive. So that's what was going on and why it was premature. I just played a couple games and I basically wiped everything down, started from scratch, started a whole new database, did the whole 9 yards, played a couple hands of a cash game, and without doing anything too particular beyond just, importing the folder and getting everything started, it immediately grabbed the files and it put it into the live play interface, and I was able to see the hands as they progressed, like it normally did. When I stopped the overlay, the hands stayed in the live play, but the file in the folder was moved from the active place in the hand history folder into the archive. So that manipulation does not change the status of the information in the software. The place that it exists, or the place that the hand history exists at that point, does not affect it. If it's either in your hand history folder or in the archive folder. Once the Holdem Manager software imports that information, it stays in the database until you remove it by exporting it or wiping the database, which is done through the tools interface here by purging hands. The command is purging hands, and that allows you to wipe anything that's on there. So that's what's going on. That's number one of the things that I wanted to show you. Number two is that certain types of files for SWC are recognized as cache games instead of tournaments, and others aren't. Here's a demonstration showing that the file types that are generated by SWC that are tournaments are sometimes recognized as cache games and not tournaments, but other forms of tournaments aren't recognized at all. Now, as you can see in the database, it's completely blank. No players found, cache game, can't change it to anything because there's no database for the players. And in the folder, I have one no limit tournament file. So if I go ahead and I try to import this, it says import completed. There's an error, and if you go into the errors at the very bottom, it says invalid date specified in hand history. As you can see, the file wasn't added. It's not recognized. No players found. Nothing at all. It won't recognize that file. Here is another file. As you can see, it's exactly the same except for the value of the tournament itself. Now watch what happens when I add this file. Import file. It recognizes it as a cache game. See? If I hit cache, I get a pop-up window that says current player has no tournament hands. The difference between these two files, I can't figure out. If I look at the files themselves, which I'll show you here, hold on a second. If I show you what let me show you what these files look like. So let's go ahead and open up one of them. There you go. So you can see here, let's see if I can make it larger for you so it's easier to read. Okay. So let me make this a bit larger. If you look specifically, okay. If you look specifically at the file itself, you will see that there's a format for the file identifier, which is right there. If I open up another one, the other folder, or the other file, excuse me, and this is the one that was accepted. Okay, let me make that a little bit smaller so you can see, you can compare the two. There we go. I believe that's the second one. Let me see. Okay. Let's make it just as large. Oh, we'll just make it up here. I'm gonna go this one. So if you look at the two files, you will see that the date and table information is no different than the date and table information of the second. They're both the same. The only thing that's different between them is this one identifies as 2450 plus 500 Holdem no limit, and this one is 4900 plus 100 no limit. The type of tournament is different too, but the information that's available in the brackets should not change the function. You can see one is a mini progressive KO, one is a 6-max NLHE 250 DON. This information should not affect it, but for some reason, these two file types are different, are seen as different by the software. And both of them come up, or excuse me, one of them comes up specifically as a cache game and not a tournament. So there you go. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with the database as far as how Holdem Manager reads these files. The format is no different as far as how the information of the hands is recorded. The only thing that changes is the title. And the error that came up specifically said that there was a time discrepancy or a time error. Let me see if I can find that so I can show you what I'm talking about. Here we go. Recent databases. Oops. No, sorry. Yeah, the import history. Here we go. And if I look at the errors, Let me pull up the errors here so I can show you what I'm talking about. There we go. Errors. And then I will show you here. So let me bring that up. There you go. Let's pull this over. Specifically, invalid date specified in hand entry or hand history. That's the error that comes up when I try to load the other tournament. So that's the situation that we're looking at here as far as the Holdem Manager for SWC Poker. Hopefully, this information will help people figure out what's going on. I'm going to submit this to the support team, and hopefully they'll get an idea of what's going on. All right, thank you.